Have you ever recently been doing something where you've had really heavy, deep emotions triggered for you and you couldn't figure out why? Okay, so through experience, what I have found is that the reason you get triggered by something you're doing or something you're watching is because there has been an experience in your past that your brain has told you that you're not at that time capable of dealing with, especially with the emotions that come up. So what happens is you put those emotions and those memories into a small compartmental box. What happens then is your brain takes it away to a part of your brain which it thinks you can't access anymore, so that you don't have to deal with it at the time. Now, once you are back up and on your feet and you're capable of actually dealing with it again, there'll be something that you're doing or something that you're watching that will trigger those emotions, and those emotions will come up, and you may get vivid recollections of what happened to you, and you'll have to then deal with those emotions, like process them and process what went on and figure out what the lessons were from that experience. So recently I was watching something, and it was where a lady was being abused. And because I don't normally watch a lot of TV at all. So anyway, this triggered some really heavy emotions for me, because there was a time in my life where I had dated someone. He was really sweet and really nice at the start. He moved himself into my place. He had an 11-year-old daughter. He was about 10 years older than me. I thought that things would change slowly, but not as quickly as what they did, because what I found through him moving himself into my place, that he was quite abusive. Like, he was quite mentally and psychologically and verbally abusive. And his view on women is, if he's in a relationship with them, he wants them to serve him. And if you've got your own things going on, you've got a career, you're studying as well, and you've got your own hobbies, and they get in the road, well, then guess what? He'd get abusive. He'd get really angry and really abusive. And anyway, I had to deal with that for quite a while. And what was also coming up with that situation was that he was bringing up his past relationships and, telling me what went wrong with those. And he was always pointing the finger at the women, saying it was their fault. It had nothing to do with him. It was their fault. But yet he was also telling me of times where, one of them had actually called the police on him because he basically lifted her up by her neck up against the wall, and it scared the crap out of her. And he was saying, oh, but I'm not a violent person. I don't do that sort of thing. And I was shocked when she called the police, and I was sitting there thinking, oh my, what did I get myself into? Anyway, so a series of different things happened throughout that time that he was, staying with me, and his 11-year-old daughter was staying every couple of weeks and stuff like that. Was, I got to know the real him, the abusive him, the angry, bitter person who constantly blamed other people for what was going on in his life. And he wasn't learning any of the lessons from his past relationships to be able to move forward. And to a point, he hadn't even cut off his past partners. So he was still friends with them. One in particular was his, I can understand that he was still friends with his daughter's mother, but I came to know later on why his daughter didn't like me. And that was because even though he was staying at my place, he was still sleeping with her mother. So of course she had all of these built up anger issues and emotions coming up for her as well. Anyway, I went through, I had a battle with cervical cancer at that point in my life as well, and I had to go to hospital to get a piece of me cut out, and it was only going to be day surgery and stuff. So I got him to drop me off. He was supposed to pick me up, after surgery, and surgery came around, and after surgery he wasn't there. I rang and I texted and he just wasn't there. So I had to call a taxi and get the taxi to take me home from there. And that night he came home and he was so frantic and so upset about what was going on in his life and everything else. And he had completely forgotten that I had gone into surgery that day and that I needed him to be there for me. So the very next day, he went to work. I sorted myself out, and that was when I decided that I couldn't put up with that anymore. So I had my neighbour's partner help me move his stuff out of my place and into the garage, and I actually locked him out of the place and let him know that his stuff was in the garage and for him to collect, because you don't want to be in a relationship or even, dating someone or seeing someone who is completely self-consumed and unaware of who they are being when they're around you, and, not putting you first when you need them. So I was dealing with those emotions when they got triggered recently, and it was really, really hard. But through the techniques that I'd learnt through, the coaching course and so forth, I got through them. I sat there, I processed them. I processed the memories. I learnt what I needed to learn to be able to move forward and to not have anything trigger me like that again from that situation. So can you tell me of a time similar where you've done something like that as well? All right, so that's another piece of my history I just thought I'd share with you, and why it actually came up. So yeah, all right, thanks for listening.